Hello, I would like to present program Metals. This can be launched by icon which is set on desktop. 2 times click with the left push button of mice of this icon. We are subsequently asked to set entrance password of the program. User can change this password at any moment. After this, the main screen of the program shows up. There are 2 general items. Onward here are items. It is good this extract can be sent on printer. Next, index database. This one is used in case of incorrect closed program by the fail current when can be damaged index of table. This utility repairs on its own. Further about program, where you can learn author's name of the program, and there is also his email that can be used for communication with the author. First activate this item. Steels cast are cast ironist. For this item will show offer on the top bar. As first item is applying steel. Steels are here divided into groups, commercial steels and tool steel. At first activate first item will be show field of application of such a steel, e.g. we can look for steel to use on valves. Steel for valves. Choose state, for example Czech and Slovakia. We learn be those materials. After select 17115, on the right will show chemical composition of this steel, standard and main offer. Step by step activate individual items from menus. Mechanical properties, worn rolled or forging bar, where we introduce mechanical properties for annealed condition and after age harden on bottom and middle fortress. Next here item, heat treatment, where we presented all hot operations. Next item is equivalent. Here show all equivalent materials to this steel. Look Deutsch equivalent X45 CR SI 93. It shows chemical composition of this equivalent which can be compared with chosen material. Lower C his standards. For each material are here annotated blocks. In this case, no be introduced nodes. Further look how be divided tool steels per uses, e.g. tools the called cutting, carving and chiseling, and on wood, tools on cold cutting, Sears, Selling Land, France. And below will show roll of material from those such tools make. Choose for example steel 6-5-2. On the right up see chemical composition of the steel, beside its norm and left is main offer. After activating graphical dependencies, on the right side will show offer towards this item, e.g. CCT graph, hardness depending on tempering temperature. Activate items equivalent. We can see that the material can be looked up by 2 different ways. First, we choose by mark of steel. Into the labeling, write the label material. When you don't know the exact designation, so we write the question mark. Let's say you know the sign and type X10 CRAL13. There is no need to respect the spaces or font size. When the database is many times such a label, as it turns table from which you select designated by state, e.g. select DEU. On the left show the chemical composition of the steel and below the norm. In the bottom right we see the equivalent materials from different countries. Choose marking 405 F00. Subsequently the table shows the chemical composition. Now we can compare the composition of a given material equivalent. Below shows the standard, in this case is that standard. We will try to choose the German equivalent of X6 CR AL13. The table shows in this case the Workhorse number, and below is a list of standards for the equivalent. These figures can be printed out, and here we see the output from the printer. When we do not know the identification of the material that we are looking for, just type question mark to the box. On the right side will show list of countries. Choose a country, for example England. On the left is a list of all materials from England for which there is a database equivalent material. Select the example, the designation 161430 A grade. Subsequently, the bottom right shows a list of equivalent materials from which you select GS 45 from Germany. As we see, the chemical composition of the material is not specified. When activated, the notepad is shown that the recording material which indicates that is steel are incorporated by basic mechanical properties. Note the window close so that hover in the window and double-click the left button. Also for identification of the material we can choose See the node. After activation, the printer will show similar statement to the printer. Next, we will show you how to look for equivalence in accordance with a method of using the material. We activate the item, the purpose use. As we see, the materials are divided into groups depending on the application. E.g., select tool steel on cold work and then choose the country for these steels, e.g. Germany. On the left side, show a list of materials that comply with our choice. We choose, for example, 100 CrMO7 and then show a list of equivalents from different countries. Select the example, the French equivalent of 100 CD4, and show the chemical composition of the steel or the mechanical properties, and below we see the field of application. As is choose steel on spring and further the country Italy. Then we choose the material 50 CeV4, low than normal will show information on the Japanese equivalent of SUP10P. We will show how the material searches. Select Search the material by and chemical composition. On the right side, we choose the number of elements to find the material. Select, for example, 2 elements. From table on the left, we choose a state from which we look material. We can also choose all states when we do not know from which state we seek. Choose, for example, Deutschland. Now choose the manner for input elements. Select Entering elements by selection from menus. In the table, enter the composition of the 2 elements. At the first, enter the carbon, 0.2%, then select the amount of Cr, 1%. Now we decide to search accuracy. We select large. Subsequently, the table shows the materials that contain added carbon and chromium. Above left, we see the contents of the specified elements of search and tolerance. We choose, for example, 1.7028. The left will show the chemical composition of the material above and sees a list of standards. We can compare the specified elements of the contents in the table. Activating the question mark, we will prove abbreviations for the states and the state of the material. By enabling the printer shows up, look at the statement printer. Now we still show the importance of the search material by one element. E.g., we do search for materials with a high contents of lead, so activates the one, apply for the all states, and enter the lead content 0.5%. Show list of such steels. Select, for example, LK37B. and examine its chemical composition. So this was an example of the search for steels with good matchability. We can still see steel with 60% of nickel, which is used at the furnace device. From the table we choose Inconel alloy 601. From the table we choose Inconel alloy 601, and on the left we see the chemical composition. We will show you how to locate a steel based on their names. Activate Offer the mark. Write in the appropriate box labeling steel. For example, 42 CRMO4. Indication exists in the database of more times. It shows on the left side table between those signs and the state concerned. We choose, for example, label from Germany. In the bottom left corner, we see a table with the chemical composition, and on the right is a list of equivalent materials. Choose a Swedish steel 2244. It shows its chemical composition and higher standard as we see. After activation, the printer will show similar statement to the printer. By pressing the button with Notepad, notes to prove the material. In this case, are of note. Now we can see how to look for steel if we don't know it. We show how to search for materials by selecting from the database. In the entry for label mark, write the question mark and you can just enter. From the table, we choose the right country, for example, Espanol. On the left, we see the label material from Spain. Look up the steel C102. Below is the chemical composition of the steel, and on the right is the main menu. The above is standard. After activation to equivalent, from the bottom displays a list of equivalent materials from which you can select, for example, steel S101. You receive the equivalent chemical composition as well as its standard. When we know only a part of the sign as the entry for label mark, write an asterisk and press enter. In the appropriate box, write a string of characters that we know, for example, thermo, and confirm by pressing enter. Or even enter our specified string of characters at the beginning of the sign steel, search or not. We do not know, so you choose the second item. On the left side, we see the sign occupied by specified string as new. As we choose Thermax 4828, it shows the chemical composition and pops up at the bottom called similar materials. After its activation, we have the possibility of other choice, so we choose find relative materials in other states. Bottom right shows the list of such materials. We choose, for example, 15 CNC 20-1. From France, it shows the chemical composition of the steel. We can compare the composition of the two materials. Above may show tolerance to carbon and other elements in a search. It should be noted that such materials may not be search equivalents. They are just like their chemical from France, as shows the chemical composition of the steel. We can compare the composition of the two materials. Above may show tolerance to carbon and other elements in a search. It should be noted that such materials may not be search equivalents. They are just like their chemical composition and not the physical and mechanical properties as near equivalents. In the following, we will show you how to know when looking for materials by their standards. So we activate Norm, choose Standard, CN, STN. Then we choose a particular standard CN, STN 415260. Below is the chemical composition and the main menu appears. After activating the equivalent, down a list of the equivalents. Select the designation 2230. Swedish steel will see its chemical composition and standard. Now we will show you how to locate materials by type, so activate type. On the left are broken down by model. We choose, for example, high alloyed cast steel and then choose country, for example Japan. On the left side of the screen describe the materials from which they select, for example SCS12. On the right we see the main menu from which we choose the equivalent, and in the table below choose the material 422931. It shows the chemical composition and standard. After activation button type, we learn that the abbreviation VSL means high alloy steel cast on stock. Table chemical composition are key to the notebook. After their activation, will prove note to the relevant material. This user can accordingly. Last option in here is mechanical properties, where the user can choose the material according to the desired mechanical properties. After activation of the left selection table material, for example, manganese steels, from the menu and the right to select an item under which we will collect material, e.g. strength limit. Then we choose the state of the material, for example status quenched, heat treated, and enter the desired value. This has to be from the above range, for example 900. Finally, we choose the country from which we need to seek such steel. We choose Deutschland. On the right side will show a list of materials that fit your parameters. Next, we activate the menu Item Service. Here I show other options that you gradually see through. The first is related to the hardness conversion tables. After its activation, we choose the material and the condition, and then from right to offer value, for example, fortresses. We know and enter it in the list on the right. Subsequently, it shows the value of other values, for example, in Vickers Brno. Then there is an item micro hardness of steels, where we find by micro hardness indentation. We need to know magnification microscope and micro hardness load. So after activation, we choose microscope magnification 630x and further load 0.1. Then we write to the table diagonal size meteorite injection. After entering this asset value, evaluate. Subsequently, the table shows the result of hardness HV 0.1. These results we can print. Another item is the graphs. Here are all the graphs that are used in the program. Some of I will show you. Activate this item. The menu appears on the left side, from which you select the first item. Below, you will show a list of graphs and charts, e.g. iron carbon phase diagram, where we see the famous diagram. Then there is a Shalarov's diagram. Now we choose from the dependencies of mechanical properties. And the other one offers hardness grain, residual austenite hardening temperature. Then apply for the Sweden, and above proof to describe the materials that are in the program, such diagrams, e.g. it select Vidar. The last item here is the periodic table of elements. After its activation, you will see the periodical table where each element has its own information. After selecting, for example, boron, it's shown in the table with basic information about this feature, and also we see the grip type and its layout. After activation, blue button show further information, and this user also will be complementary. After we activate the second major item, non-ferrous metals. We see above bit on this item. We will show how there are materials distributed by usage. So we activate items applying non-ferrous metal and its alloy. As we can see, that color materials are divided into groups. Look, for example, on light metal, for example, engine head. On the right side of the screen, there are materials used for this purpose. After selecting the material, show its chemical composition. There are also materials with more than 90% of the selected element. After activation, prove these elements. For example, we choose the platinum, and the right side shows the corresponding identification of the material, and once activated will display their chemical composition. Then there are extra soldiers that you can choose according to application, temperature, or by usage, e.g. activate items by purpose use. Tin soldier. The right side displays a list of materials for this item. Meaning of abbreviations is shown below buttons with question marks. We will show you how to seek equivalent materials. Activate equivalent. In the appropriate box to type the exact identification of the material. Until it is exactly, we do know, so write the question mark, and then we choose the country, for example France. From the menu, choose the type of color material, e.g. copper-based alloy, from list, and search such material. 9p wire. Below is shown the chemical composition and the table on the right is the list of equivalent materials. Choose, for example, broth. Below show the chemical composition of the material down and see standards. Colorful materials can be searched by chemical composition, labeling, and according to the type of material. We activate search by material and again click chemical composition. Here you must first select the type of material, for example, plumbum, alloy on base. Then we choose the country of origin of the material, for example England, and enter the chemical composition. Then we choose Accuracy Locate and show the materials that match a given composition. Activate the next item, label of material. Here, as with steel, we must enter a name materials, or we can choose to write a question mark and label from the database. Here we will show how the selection of signs from the database. So write the question mark and select the country Japan. On the left is a list of materials from Japan, and here you will find our materials, for example A1070. After activation, it shows standard chemical composition. Above is the equivalent materials. When activated, it will display a table with equivalents, and after the election signs are displayed chemical composition and below standards, and search by the standard type that is the same as for steel. Here we completed a tour of the metals. I thank you for your attention, but allow to conclude a few words. The metals was established in 1997. At that time, I worked in a team which dealt with the material by metallography and heat treatment. Often we needed to assign either the chemical composition or the equivalent of some material. It was performed by different available tables and literature. Sometimes it took several hours before we were to hammer out some results. Therefore, I have decided that I will start to make its own use material database so I can accelerate the process. This program was created not in the form as we see it now, who could no longer find our data in seconds. That was a huge help to us at that time. The information you are provided in those days, the internet was not such as they are today. Today we have a lot of information about metals on the internet, but there is not everything, and not all of them is trustworthy. It is needed filter and keep an eye on what we learn from the internet. This program is still following entry. Today this program includes about 24,000 marking materials. Those who would like to communicate with me, please uh, please contact me at my email postmetal717 at gmail.com or visit the site www.postmetal.sk. We're on the program for even more. So I thank you again for your attention and wish you all the best.